All right, folks, it's Jake from Metal Wani, and we're here with Josh Todd, singer and frontman for Buckcherry, to talk about their new album, Warpaint. Josh, how you going, man?
Hey, man, I'm really great. I'm in here, Los Angeles right now. We kick off the United States and Canada tomorrow night.
Yeah, nice. And it is a very good record. It's a very, very refreshing record. So it is your 8th studio album as part of Buckcherry. I know you've done some other stuff yourself, but does it still buzz you to be releasing new albums for Buckcherry? Sort of, you're 8 albums into your career now?
Yeah, I work so much that, it's like I'm on a tour, I come home, I jump into songwriting, I'm, here at home with my family and doing family stuff, and I don't get an opportunity to kind of step back and look at everything I've done. And so now, cut to 2019 here, 20 years in the game since our first record. So that's pretty significant. To have that kind of longevity in the rock game is impressive, and I'm very grateful, and I've also worked hard for it.
Yeah, you definitely have. And for this album, you guys actually had written over 30 songs before you entered the studio, and you worked feverishly for several weeks to find essence in that batch of 30 songs, and you managed to carve it down to 12 powered tracks. So did it get difficult to leave out some of the good ones among the remaining 18?
No, because, the good songs always win. They always come to the surface, so at the end of the songwriting process, we compiled lists. So me and Stevie and our manager and our producer, Mike Plotnikoff, we all wrote down lists of, 11 songs that we thought were great, from the demos. And so there was about 8 songs that all matched, and then it was just really kind of talking about the last remaining 2, so it wasn't that hard. It's always, when you sit down and listen to a body of work, you can tell when a song isn't really a part of the group, that, we got too many of these type of songs, which one is the best? Like, we got a lot of mid-tempo songs, we got to trim those down, we need another rocker, we have enough ballads, stuff like that. Yeah. But we do that when we're in the songwriting process too.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Now, I know that you've spoken about this album's focus being one that really tries to get you that radio presence that you had during the earlier part of your career, and something that's been lacking over the last few albums. So why was that such a big motivator for you? Because
I'm really competitive by nature, and I want to compete at the highest level, really, and radio is it's important, not as important as it used to be, but it's still important. And I write songs that you can remember, so it's been kind of a thorn in my side over the years, and hopefully this will remedy that.
Yeah, I think it definitely will, because I think there is a lot of quality on here that it's going to be really good to see when it gets into the hands of fans and see how they react with it. So can you tell us a little bit about the writing process for Warpaint? I know there have been some lineup changes since your last album, but did they affect you or the process at all?
The lineup changes only enhanced the writing process. It was just, without going into much detail, before all the changes took place, Buckcherry wasn't really unified in a band for about 3 years before the last lineup change. So it was refreshing, and it brought new life into Buckcherry, and it needed to happen. And we're so much happier, and the lineup is the best musically as far as the quality of musicianship than it's ever been.
Yeah, fair enough. Now, I know that you've also said earlier that people paint themselves or tattoo themselves to not only show up for battle, but to mark a really amazing time in their lives. So it's a celebration. Now, What made you select Warpaint as an album name? Is it due to your own heavily tattooed, war-painted self, or is it a fascination that you might have with, say, Native American culture or something along those lines?
I love Native American culture. I mean, I've always been fascinated with the Indians since I was a kid, as far as how they looked, and they were just always cool looking, you know. But it wasn't that really thought out. We needed a record title. I always like one-word record titles. I think that's really cool. I think that really makes a statement, and we've had them in the past, and so we threw around a bunch of different ideas for record titles, and Warpaint was already written. It was already a song, and we knew it was going to be on the record, and I was like, we could do, you know, we wanted a name that we could do so much with as far as the artwork and visually and all of that. So it had to be something like that as far as having a meaning. And so it was just, we kept coming back to it, and Warpaint was born. Yeah,
very nice. So track right now on the album is a statement about living in the present. Now, you've been sober for a very long time and you're not being judgmental or resentful, and I guess this song is like a reminder to people about living their lives in the present without giving a shit about the past or worrying about the future. Now, is that something that you agree with?
It's not about not giving a shit about the past, because, you know, you got to learn from the past, but, you know, you can't live in the past, because I think there's no reason to, because at the end of the day, there is no past and there is no future, you know, if you really think about it. And that's, you know, I meditate, and I've been sober for 24 years, and I had to do a lot of inner work on myself, not just with my professional life, but my personal life. There was just a lot of stuff that I had to deal with, you know, during this downtime, and that always makes for really great records. But, you know, it's not easy, you know. It's painful at times, very painful, and so you know, that's part of life, is growth, and that's what I mean by all that, you know what I mean. And I don't want to have regrets. I don't want to be living in the past, because that's a really painful way to live, you know, to wake up every morning and to be regretting all kinds of stuff. It's really just a learning process at the end of the day.
Yeah, and look, that's actually a really good sort of, I guess, angle to lead into the next question, talking about regrets, because I hear a lot of punk rock elements on the album, obviously, given the bands that you're interested in growing up and that. And I guess the best example would be on the track No Regrets. So Stevie D has sort of brought in a little bit of a Social Distortion influence to this song, and some of those influences can be heard on the album. So is that something that you two discuss, about bringing in your influences without diverting from Buckcherry's core sound?
You know, Stevie, like I said, Stevie and I have known each other for a long time. I met Stevie when I was 19, when I first moved to LA, and we actually worked together in a vintage clothing store. We were struggling musicians. Then we became roommates, and this, you know, he wasn't in Buckcherry until 2005. So I've known him for a long time, and he knows my roots. He knows where I come from and what I loved when I was a kid, and so he really kind of took it upon himself. We had written so many songs up to the point where I got the No Regrets music. And he calls me up and he goes, before he sends the music, he goes, "Hey man, we've been writing a lot of songs, and I came up with this idea, and it kind of sounds like Social Distortion." That's exactly what he said. And I just want you to have an open mind and listen to it. And I was like, yeah, send it over. So he sent it. And I listened to it, and I was like, this is amazing. And I, you know, texted him and said, this is great. And I jumped on it and started writing. And sometimes when I get music, and I'll just sit back and listen to it for a little while, and just kind of, you know, think in my mind about, okay, where's this song taking me? What do I want to say with this music, you know? And I really started reminiscing about the time in my life where, you know, I was building my independent record collection. All these types of punk rock bands I loved, because they were all on independent labels. So they had no rules. They had no major labels taming them down, trying to tell them what they can say and what they can't say. So it was like this uncensored fucking raw version of all these bands' life and their lifestyles and what they were going through. And I was going through a lot as a kid. And so I really identified with that, and I loved lyrics. I would go buy like a Minor Threat record, and I'd come home and I would put that thing on and listen to it from beginning to end and read all the lyrics. And then I would get like Social Distortion and 7 Seconds and the Toy Dolls and those type of records, and come home and do the same thing. And so I found a lot of comfort in that, you know what I mean, as a kid. And so when I got the No Regrets music, it took me back to that time, and I wanted to create a song that had that vibe. And I wrote it about what I was going through as a kid at that time, and it was crazy.
Yeah, and I definitely think that you guys have managed to achieve that with that song. It's a great track. Now, I do want to touch, there are a few ballads on the album. You guys are obviously no stranger to writing those quieter, softer ballady type songs. So you've got The Hunger, and you've also got Radio Song. And I guess I want to comment on their positioning on the album. They're quite well placed. So what was your thought process behind including those songs where they are on the album?
I'm a stickler for sequence on a record. I always labor over that at the end. It's kind of my job. It's what I've done over the years with all the records I've been on, and so I appreciate that because it means a lot. I really work hard on the sequence, and it's hard. It's hard to get the right feel with the slower songs on a rock record, but all the great rock records that I enjoyed growing up have ballads and slower songs, and as a singer, it's nice to not be one speed, especially at shows. You want to be able to just, you've been hammering the audience, and to kind of take a break and do a nice slow song out there. It's really a good feel for the live show and for a record, So I guess it's just, you got to just keep, what I do is I get a bunch of different sequences together, and then I have to listen to them all from beginning to end until I find something that really works, and that's how I came up with it.
Yeah, fair enough. One final question for you, Josh. So you've obviously got the North American tour coming up after you launch the album, but what are the plans for the rest of 2019?
Oh, man. Worldwide, of course. We just got back from the UK and Europe, and so we're going to start here in the United States and Canada, and then there's talk of us going to Australia and Japan towards the end of the year, and my manager's working on that right now, and then we're gonna hit Europe again, Europe proper, because we only did a few shows there, and and so on and so forth. We're gonna get down to South America at some point, and Mexico, and when we go outside of the United States, it's so special for us, because most of the places you go to aren't radio-driven markets like the United States, so people really get into like the whole scope of your career and your records, and they get into like songs that aren't singles, and so that means a lot to us, and you can really feel the passion when you're on stage, playing outside the United States. And we played in Australia many times, and we feel that there. You guys really love rock music. You appreciate it.
Yeah, we do. Josh, thanks so much for your time, and we look forward to getting our hands on the new album when it comes out.
Yes, sir. Thank you.